We'll turn this on, and we're now recording. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I've got today Sifu Richard Clear, and we're going to talk about Tai Chi, its health benefits, its martial arts benefits, and as well some of the things you can do now to get involved. Welcome. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come.
Thank you.
And I think the best thing to start out with, not just for the live session, because we are going to have some people coming in and out of here, but as well for those who may not have had much exposure to you, which if they're involved in any way in Tai Chi, that's kind of hard not to be. But could you tell a little bit about yourself, your background, things like that?
Yeah, sure. This is about to be, I'm coming up on my 43rd year of doing this. I started in the 1970s. I'm 54 years old. I'll be 55 in February. 2 years ago, I've broken little odd and end bones over the years doing the martial arts, but nothing major, like small stuff. The biggest one that stands out before 2 years ago was I broke two toes, kicking to stop two of my dogs from fighting and kick the wall to try and not really kick them. But anyways, 2 years ago, I broke my back in 4 places.
Oh, wow.
Sledding with my kids, and really it wasn't the sledding that broke my back, it was the sudden stopping that broke my back. And it was compression fracture. Didn't affect any of the discs. I was in a brace for 6 months, taught a workshop, went to the ER when I broke the back, and taught a workshop 5 days later.
Whoa.
Yeah, in Houston, I had to fly there. They literally took me in a wheelchair to the airport, through the Houston airport, out to the car, and then fortunately, it wasn't a martially oriented workshop. It was more of a health one. Otherwise, I would have canceled it. And then went through that, competed in a heavyweight division push hands tournament, national, international one in July. The year I broke my back, I broke it in January. Didn't win, but didn't do badly and protected my back, which was the most important thing. In retrospect, I should have waited a year.
Yeah, that's a pretty hefty injury.
Yeah.
So to walk right out 5 days later.
Yeah. Yep. And like I say, wore the brace for just months and months, and the back is in terms of the bone is all healed up. Every once in a while I get a leg in pain, especially when I overdo it. They told me it would take about 3 years. I'm trying to beat those estimates, but it'll be 2 years in January. And I'm mostly back to, what you would think of, no problems. Anyways, so I've got some experience with working through injury, I guess, is my bigger point there on the health side, and what that takes to rehabilitate and heal. And at the age that I'm at, I'm a diabetic type 1. Type 1 is the one that little kids have, where you don't make insulin anymore and you have to take insulin. And so it's not the type 2, which is over 40, overweight, on the couch. And that's not all type 2s, but it's the bigger majority of type 2s. Type 2 can usually be cured through good diet. Not always, most of the time. Good diet and exercise. Type 1, have a great diet, have great exercise. Doesn't bear a factor on the type 1, other than you're healthier than you would be if you weren't doing that. You still have to take the insulin.
Now,
anyway,
is that what got you into Tai Chi?
That is not what got me into Tai Chi. What got me, the health side did initially get me into it. When I was a teenager, I went to a funeral, and 6 months later, I went to another funeral for my last grandparents. And when I started asking about my other grandparents, like 2 of them I hadn't seen. I remember seeing one when I was a little kid, but I hadn't seen them since. And I was like, well, so they're dead already. They both died before they were 50 years old. And so the genetic markers in the family are terrible. My mom is still alive, and she considers herself like Methuselah, like she's ancient and all of that. And she had me when she was 16. She's only 16 years older than me. And wow. I've already outlived, when I turn 55, I will have outlived my family genetics by 10% at that point.
Oh, my goodness.
And doing that while being healthy and fit and enjoying doing things like sledding with my kids, although we'll watch the hill next time. And
do you still do sledding?
Oh yeah, I've been sledding since. I watched the hills a lot better. The biggest error I made that day was I saw the sled marks down the hill that looked like other people had come down. There was no one on the hill sledding. It's because they had all gone to the hospital with injuries.
Oh,
and
wow.
Look at the bottom to see that it was actually not, that it wasn't a slope. It was a very steep ditch.
Oh.
And it was a steep hill. So it was pow, and there you go. Anyways,
full speed.
Big fun. I don't recommend it.
Oh, goodness.
Anyway, so I went to the 2 funerals when I was a teenager. On the second one, 6 months after the first one, I realized, and this was for my dad's parents who lived to be in their 50s. My mom's side, they didn't even see 50 years old. My grandma died. She had diabetes type 1. It is inherited. And she died of a heart attack at 49.
Wow.
And so I knew, I had heard that Tai Chi was great for longevity. And also I've got an inherited form of rheumatoid arthritis that you could see on my bones in my teens. And my mom already had them. Like I said, she's only 16 years older than me, so she was about 32 then, 31, 32. And she was asking me how much it hurt, because hers hurt all the time. And I was like, I don't want them to hurt. What is this? And I heard that Tai Chi was really great for arthritis. And at that time, it was probably the biggest promoted thing about Tai Chi was how great it was for arthritis and back injuries and this kind of thing. Not back injuries, but back pain and all of that. And so I went and started the Tai Chi with that, and was still doing the other Kung Fu I learned from my teachers. And then one day sparring a guy that I wasn't used to seeing in class, he tapped me 3 times and was standing behind me. And I thought I had blinked or something, or just zoned out for a second. And I was like, that was interesting. Can you do that? And the taps were on my chest. Bam, bam, bam. He was behind me. And I had done this, and he did that. And so I was like, man, can you do that again? And he said, sure, I can do that again. No problem. And I was like, okay, boom, 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 boom. And sure enough, and then he was behind me again. And I was like, okay, I got to know what style of Kung Fu that is. And I'm expecting to hear like some kind of a bagua, yellow reaper comes out of the bushes and jumps on, whatever. And he says Tai Chi, and I was like, yeah, right. And he was like, no, I only do Tai Chi. That's Tai Chi. And I was like, okay. And I was like, that's like nearly mystical. You were in front of me. You tapped me three times. I didn't touch you, and you're behind me. I got to have some of that. And so I was in the middle of an 88 move Black Tiger Kung Fu form. And I literally was 40 some moves in, and I went, I gotta have that. I gotta be able to do what he just did. And my teacher said, well, what about and I said, if it's okay with you, I'm going to stop learning that form right now. I've got to do this. I gotta have that. And so that's what got me started on the martial path for Tai Chi, was him being able to use it in a way that if it's in a fight and they're touching air and you're tapping them and behind them, that's pretty effective fighting skill right there. And so I started studying that. What's that?
Very much so. Yeah, I could see where that would be a huge benefit.
And so they started teaching it to me, and I started learning the long form. I was learning the long form because of the health stuff, but hadn't been real serious about it. I started getting the martial part of those moves. And when I say the long form, it was originally the 108 for Yang style. And really for seriously starting that, this would have been about 1980, somewhere around 1983.
Okay.
By that point. That was like, okay, I'm doing this seriously now. And so I was 19 at the time. And for the first, and then started trying to use it about 2 to 3 months into it for when I was sparring with the other Kung Fu guys in class, and literally got my butt handed to me just again. And I'm trying to make it work. Can't, they're hitting me, beating me up, everything else. And it took about 6 months before I actually was able to get one technique that was a Tai Chi technique to come off one time, and then the rest of it still getting beat up. But I was dedicated to it. I wanted to be able to do what that guy did. And it took me about another 6 months, so a year in total, before just being very dedicated to it, before I was able to do okay, where it felt more like I was swimming in air while sparring with someone trying to hit me. And then continue to build it from there. And that method is the Yang Shaohu original, what they call like the air, or the, we call it like the formless fighting or the ghost fighting method, because it's got this very soft, very that way. But it comes through that lineage, and from what I can gather, and my teacher's teacher, he was the #1 disciple under Dr. Wu, Dr. Fred Wu. He was a disciple under Li Yingong. Li Yingong, the history gets a bit obscure. He has some stuff out there, like he's one of the 10 in the book Tai Chi Touchstones. He is one of the 10 instructors with a section in that book, and he is talking about the Yang family stuff directly. And it seems to be that he got a lot of what he got from Deng family, but then actually had time with the Yang family directly, and that's kind of where his stuff comes from.
That's pretty impressive. To have that time is impressive.
Yeah, and so that kind of got me started, and then I continued to study from them until the early mid 1990s. Got with some other instructors doing some Wudong during this period of time. In 1994, 95, went to China and met Ma Yuliang and trained his internal push hands method. And that really changed my life, both for the internal power side and for the application and understanding on the martial side. And also that it's healing while you're doing this fun game with the internal push hands. And internal push hands a little different than what most people think of and see as the more martial or for lack of a better word, sumo type push hands. It's not quite that, although it can be played that way. But generally speaking, people get a lot more internal with that method a lot faster. And Ma designed it. It was his design for that purpose. Anyway, we continued to try to study and train. About 1994, 95, I started with Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill studied directly with Deng Huling, and both the martial side and the internal skill side. And he's been my teacher now since 1990, like I said, about 1990, probably the first time I trained with Uncle was about 1993, 1994. The last time I saw him here I saw him in October, and I'm working on, I bring him in for workshops about once a year. Usually he's at that place in his own development where he's basically looking at retirement kind of a thing and passing the art on to myself and the other senior instructors in his lineage. And so for the last several years, he's been grooming me and those people specifically for that. And he really doesn't do a lot of wider public kind of stuff anymore, other than like one event that he does in Denver once a year. And then even then, most of the time it's me and the other guys teaching. He'll do a little bit in the morning, a little bit maybe towards the end of the day, and then the rest of the time he's got us on the floor doing stuff.
Now you bring up something interesting there. And I see this a lot on different discussion forums. You're obviously at this stage of your practice, without a doubt, a master in the art. And but I heard you say you still maintain a teacher.
I tend to maintain at least 3 and plan to do that for the rest of my life.
And I was going to ask about that. Can you talk to that a little bit? Because I do find that there are some teachers, and I'm not saying one's negative or positive or the other is, but when they get to a certain point, they start teaching and they kind of end their student time, so to speak.
Yep. They quit learning,
They quit learning. And can you talk to that a little bit? Because obviously you've got a diverse background. You've got the knowledge base there. But that's interesting to hear that you say, and I do that. I've still got to teach. The teacher I first started with, I still go to, and we meet on a regular basis. We're actually good friends now and hang out. But can you talk to that a little bit? Why keep that going, and why keep that in place as a teacher now, or as a Tai Chi master now?
Yeah. So a lot of folks, what happens is that they study for up till they get, like, I'll just use karate terms here to make it simple. They study till they get their black belt. Maybe even if they know that in order to promote other people to black belt, they have to go to 3rd degree, and they'll get the 3rd degree, and then they quit being a student and they go off and they teach. And if it's one of these systems where at 4th and 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th degree black belt, it's how long you've been doing it, then they can actually continue to get rank even though they're not learning anything other than what they're practicing themselves. But in the actual styles, and again, I'm going to use karate as the example, at each of those degrees, at least through 7th degree, there is stuff to learn. And if they're not studying that stuff, then they're really a 2nd degree who's been doing 2nd degree black belt stuff for a long time. And so the way I equate that is that if we're talking about American medical folks, we're literally talking about somebody that's a nurse. They've been a nurse for 30 years, and so they're doing surgery now because they've been a nurse for 30 years. And I don't want somebody with the knowledge of a nurse doing surgery on me of any kind. Let's say brain surgery, right? I don't want them touching like that. And so if you had a 2nd-year surgeon who has completely had all of the training, or a 30-year nurse, and they're going to do brain surgery, which one are you going to pick? Which one's going to have that bigger knowledge, the better skill, the appropriate skills to do the job, all that kind of stuff. And if they are a serious surgeon, if they're a world-class surgeon, they're going to keep studying on new techniques because new ones are getting developed every day, and they're going to keep getting better. And now in the martial arts, it's not like we have to reinvent a lot of really high-level information. There's a lot of high-level information out there. But if the person hopes to discover that on their own magically because they're practicing what they got up to their 5 years, 6 years, maybe even 10 years of study, literally what I found is that a whole lot of the high-level skills, to figure it out on your own, to reverse engineer it or somehow magically come to it, and this is with working at it, it'll take 2 to 5 years to get the average single skill. And let's say you're really gifted. So it takes you 6 months to a year to figure out a skill. That means in 20 years time, 30 years time, you figured out 20 or 30 skills. The thing is, there's 500 to several thousand high-level skills. And so, what do you want your knowledge to be? Yeah, and what is it that you're looking for? If you're just looking for some self-defense, if somebody's doing that, and they only want to be able to protect themselves and that's it, with a good teacher, that can be done from anywhere from a few weeks to absolutely less than a year. Everything you need for real serious self-defense, if it can't be learned in that period of time, you need a different teacher. Because it can actually be conveyed so that you can defend yourself, and then you train that really well and you got it. If you're doing the health thing, it's almost the same, probably closer to 2 or 3 years. Really, there's a lot of education to be gained. And I'm talking about just health for daily maintenance of yourself. How I'm going to exercise, how I'm going to breathe, how I'm going to relax, how I'm going to, in order to keep lower blood pressure, lower heart rate, increase the oxygen rate, how I'm going to keep really fit, how I'm going to have a really great diet, and all those things that if you've had 2 or 3 years worth of really good training and really good regimens, you probably have all you want for that. So that's kind of the health side, right? Now, if you want to do that where you're healing other people, herbs alone is probably a 20-year study, and you won't know it all. There's like 60,000 or more, and when I'm saying this, somebody here on the line will probably chime in, maybe a couple 100,000 different herbs, different things those herbs will do, and tonics and mixtures. And when I say herbs, it's not just plants. There's also animal byproducts and parts and all that. It is this greatly deep subject. If we're talking about something like Fogong or Qi transmission, where you're learning how to heal by feeling the energy field, adjusting the energy like that, when I start folks off, I teach them to feel the energy and then interpret what that is, because when you actually hit a malady or a problem of some sort, it feels different depending on what it is. So for example, arthritis has a very certain kind of a signature to it. It's very scratchy, very staticky, and it has a feeling. And when you felt that, when I teach people, and they felt that on 2 or 3 people, every time they feel that kind of arthritis, which is most kinds actually, again, they know it's arthritis. It's very evident, and and then the method for taking care of it's the same and all of that. But that's one condition. How many different conditions are there that a human body can have? Now, I'm not recommending somebody do this for like bones sticking out of the body or for certain things. You go to a regular hospital and get fixed up. That's just a smart thing to do. For the energy healing stuff, though, for what can go on internally with a person, there's a lot to learn. Again, we're talking about something that done seriously, deeply. It's probably a 10-year study by itself. Acupuncture, really a 10-year study to be a high-level practitioner by itself. On the healing part that I was talking about, the Fa Gong, Fa being like a mission, or Fa Chi or Chi Fa, which is energy emission. And it's really not a great translation of what it is. It's just talking about the idea that you can sense the energy, perceive it, and then manipulate it. That program alone, most people, when they start off, they're working hard to be able to feel it and to understand what they're feeling and to be able to process it, and then knowing what to do with it and all of that. By the time I've got somebody that's been doing that for 3 to 4 years, seriously practicing it, they get to where they don't have to be so close to the person. They're able to get to things a lot faster. They're able to move the energy, to sense the energy a lot faster and better, to move it a lot faster and better, and to have an effect. By the time I get somebody that's been at this for 7, 8, 9 years, I found most of them graduate to where they can actually do it with their mind to the other person's body, and they don't have to reach their hand out anymore. But it is a process and a learning thing. And then, of course, at that point, you get to where you can really do it long distance and all these other kinds of things. But it doesn't come easily, quickly for most people. Most people have to work at it a lot. And there are things that you run into where it requires more education and more knowledge. That's kind of what I was trying to get to there. And so there's the progression yourself, but also getting enough information in to understand what you're perceiving and how you're perceiving it and all that. Anyways, I kind of digress a little bit there.
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to look here real quick. Somebody's having an issue getting in. One of the things that I'm hearing you saying is there, let me send this guy. We got one more person.
So part of what I'm saying is there are levels of skill, right? And in Tai Chi, most people that are out there that are doing the YMCA, just waving their hands around in the air version, it's kind of like the no level, or maybe some Li level, Li, typically how we spell it, the physical level, but they don't have anything going on at the Chi level. They don't have anything going on at the E level, the mind training level. They don't have anything going on at, they'll say they're doing Jing, but usually when they're at that level, either the Jing is really, really, really weak, such that it's not anywhere near what it should be for level of ability, and they're doing things at a physical level, thinking they're doing them at a Jing level, and there is a real difference. If somebody puts their hands on me and I'm doing Jianxi Jing or spiraling energy, they feel the spirals going on inside my body, even though I'm just sitting there still. And so that's a level of training, and then from there to be able to make that into a Shin level is a whole nother body of training. But most people, they never get any of the Shin training because they stop early in the process. And to get Shin level training from most teachers, you're looking at the 15 to 20 year mark before you get to start, and that's with all the work that came before. And then if they're going to go into the high Wuji or void level, that requires somewhere around the 25 to 30 year mark before really doing the work and the practice, and studying and getting the information you need so that it makes sense. Now, there are shortcuts to a lot of that in the Tai Chi, but most of the shortcuts are very dangerous for you. And I'll just say directly, dangerous physically sometimes, mentally almost always. There's a lot of the higher level training stuff in the Tai Chi that there are safe ways to do it and that are correct and that people would identify immediately as this would be the Tai Chi way to go about it. And then there are these fast methods. Most of the fast methods are not really Tai Chi oriented, and if you do them that way, let me put it this way, the temple for Shin, there's a temple in Asia for Shin training directly. Before they let you in, there's two things that have to do. You have to knock yourself out somehow with your own hands. And if you don't, they don't let you in, and they're watching you outside the gate.
Oh, wow. The
other thing they do is once you get admitted, they let you know that 3 out of 4 people who go into that temple and do the Shin training lose their mind, and then they have to stay there they don't get to leave. because they can't let them out on society. And so basically it's like an insane asylum for that part. And it's because the people that train Shin, it is very difficult in the first place because it has to do with the mind and the spirit aspect of the training. And most people are not well equipped to handle that from go. And then the only way that you could be would be to do a lot of very strong, disciplined work, and to really be very serious about that work. And part of that is an honesty with yourself about who you are, what you are, how your mind works, why you do almost anything you do in life, why you are there. And it cannot be strictly a pursuit of power, even though it is very powerful, because if it is, it ends up being one of these tangents. And I just saw something recently that I agree with, where it said there are like 750 different paths and more than 2,500 incorrect paths.
That's most of Tai Chi in some ways.
Yeah, that's kind of what he was talking about. And it makes sense that there's so many little ways that somebody could go off the path on that high level stuff that really take you, not just, oh, I didn't gain skill, but they take you somewhere that ideally anybody knowing, oh, that's where that ends up, doesn't want to go. And so at the high level stuff, you have to be careful. And for the teachers to teach it, they have to see that the work and the diligence was there, or they have to be willing to be very irresponsible. And so for me, I put in that work and wanted it like that. And also very early on in my life, started the training for my mind and my interaction to life and myself. Now, I don't always sound that way. I tend to come across a bit crass. But part of my journey, if you were, was, I can tell you how nice it is, and or I can tell you, hey, that's a bunch of crap. I'm going to do this. I'm going to tend to do the second one. But it's not meant in a way to be harmful or mean as much as it is. I can keep saying that the emperor's got some clothes on, but that guy looks naked to me. I just tell you what I'm seeing, and then if somebody goes, "Oh, that's pretty rude," okay, hey, you know what? I apologize for that. The guy looks like he's not wearing any clothes. I'm not going to lie to you about it. It's just not where I'm coming from. I don't always make the most friends doing that, but for the people that study, they know I'm going to tell them to the best of what I understand. I'm not going to throw them a bunch of garbage. I'm not going to lead them down a straight path. And if I think they're going somewhere that's going to be bad or inappropriate, I'm going to give them the warnings. And if it's warnings of like, hey, that's going to make you insane, and so you really shouldn't do it, and they keep going, I try to get them out before and quit teaching them before they hit that kind of a point. I don't want to be responsible for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things, and you bring up something here with this, the Shin portion of it, component of it, that's a very vague area for most people.
Because it's high level. Because to really learn it, it's really high level, and they have to do the work through the Chi level. And the Chi level is not just, hey, I can feel some Chi. That's the first step. But then there's a whole large body of training there about the Chi. Now, that's kind of more public information, or at least closer to where people can do like the Dalian and some of the other things and get a bunch of Chi level training. The E level training, all of a sudden the field, which is the next level up, it gets to be a whole lot less people that know about that level. They know that your mind's supposed to be in it, but actually being able to do things with your mind, putting hands on with somebody and feeling all the way to their feet and being able to connect to specific parts in their body is considered, including for the health, adjusting things inside, including for the Demok, being able to go, okay, that's where his heart is, bang, and it looks like I didn't do anything, but it's because I can feel it, and so because I can feel it, when I tap it, even lightly, I'm tapping on that thing that I'm feeling.
Okay.
So there's skills, and there's a bunch of others happening at the E level of training. The teachers are very reluctant to pass that on for the reasons that they worry that people can do great harm with it. And a lot of people have stopped at Li level anyways. They're not even doing their sets or the other things that the teacher wants, or their Chi level stuff is really low and they haven't put in the time and effort or followed the practices accurately. And so then the teachers a lot of times don't want to teach the E level, and they're looking to see how responsible the person is and how mature they are and what their reasons are. And they're already beginning to screen for what's going on. And then a lot of people, what happens if they've got 10 forms and a sword form and some push hands and everything else, they think they got the bigger part of the art, and they're still doing Li level, beginning level stuff for where the art actually goes. And so they don't progress past that. And then they're doing some Jings, but the Jings are mostly Li level, beginning level, being expression with a little bit of mind and with some Chi in it, but it's all really shallow compared to what it can be. And ideally, if you were a serious Tai Chi practitioner, what it is. And so then with the Jings, there's like 36 primary colors, Jings, and then like another anywhere from 150 to 250, maybe more, different expressions of that. And so people can do that and be in it for 20 years easily and never actually hit the Shin level training. And then the number of teachers that I've met that really have that going on is very small. It's not that many. And if they have it and they think the person's mishandled anything that came before that, they don't want to teach. They don't even want to get into the subject with them. And even if they've done that well, then it's okay. So what are your motivations? Let's say the person just really wants power. We go, okay, yeah, this will do that, but I'm worried about what else this is going to do to you. So
what will be the outcome of that?
Yeah, the outcome of that. So there's a lot of filter from the teacher, a lot of filter coming from the student themselves, even though they don't realize it. And then they typically don't know what the levels are either. And then they're reading a little bit about Shin. Usually it's so isolated or so little being written that it's easy to take it out of context. There's at least one teacher running around out there now talking about Shin with the students all the time. And what he really means is kind of let's smoke some pot, get high, and get our mind up into the clouds. And that's not it at all.
So that's all we had to do.
Exactly.
No,
yeah,
I think
so you get a lot of people that are thinking that. They're thinking that, oh, I'm thinking deep spiritual thoughts and that's Shin. And no, that's obviously, if you have great deep spiritual thoughts, that's wonderful and ideally part of it. But that's not going to get you to Shin anywhere in that neighborhood by itself by like light years. It just won't.
Now, let me ask you. Now, it's in line with the discussion. There is a strange dichotomy that goes on with Tai Chi. It's a martial art, so there's an intent to hurt or inflict some way to neutralize a situation. But yet
the way that most of the Tai Chi masters think about it isn't so much that I'm wanting to go out and hurt people. Now, there have been some historically that have been kind of like that. Yang Van Ho coming to mind. But most of them, it's, no, I want to neutralize that threat.
Yeah.
And that being the thought is that I can do great harm, but I'm doing that great harm in order to stop them from harming me or someone else that, that's a loved one with me, this kind of a thing. And that I'm really trying to not have that happen at all. Different than playing with somebody. A lot of the masters, if somebody's a young kid and they're coming after them, they'll play with somebody quick. They like that, but it's fun. They're not doing them any damage that the person won't recover from quickly and easily and maybe have learned a lesson in the process.
Well, the interesting part is, you've got that martial art piece, but yet there is that health piece. And so there's healing, for lack of a better word, there's healing and the hurting portion of it. Can you talk to that a little bit? I mean, it's kind of interesting that the same, and I get this a lot from my students, especially when they're new. I came into this for the meditation, the relaxation, the health component. Why are you teaching me martial arts? And and so you understand. You probably had the same dialogue yourself with new students.
Yeah, basically one of the things that I do with it, or like the first time I really tend to hit that with students, is we teach an eight move form that's more yang based than anything else, but it's got a little bit of characteristics of Wu style in it, and they learn applications for each of the moves, and they kind of learn it about, typically in my program for regular local students, 3 to 6 months into the program, and they've been learning mostly health stuff to that point. And then we start teaching them the martial, and then, okay, why do I need to learn this martial art? And what I will usually show them is, well, in your body, there is body connection that is really correct for Tai Chi and is part of what makes it Tai Chi. And then there's things that aren't connected like that, that the principles and the way you're doing it inside your body, the internal part of this, isn't correct. the application will tell us, and you doing the application carefully and not hurting your partner or anything like that, but making it happen correctly. If you can do that application correctly, then do the form like you're doing it without that person there. Those internal connections should be correct. If you're not able to do the application, in other words, it's not working for you, there are internal parts of this, little small things inside your body that are not correct that we will adjust until you're able to do that. And then that's how you'll do your Tai Chi from on. That's correct for health too, because if those connections aren't there, if those alignments aren't there, there's a health disconnect as well. And so it's both things. It's that, and so we're using the martial to test out the posture. The one that always comes to mind for me is wild horse tosses main. And if I'm doing, let me have your arm for a second. We're doing an
remember
arm
this
appears
is being recorded.
And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll put somebody in a position where I don't have the arm break, but where I'm doing this. And if I will move correctly in the posture, they'll come straight up off the floor. And what happens if you're going, and they won't come up off the floor, and you're going, oh man, I'm straining. That's because it's not correct Tai Chi. That's why.
Okay.
If it's correct, you'll do it like you would think it's supposed to look. It'll have this softness and this grace and the flow, and yet they'll move. And so it's that. I just pulled him off the chair with it, sitting here, right? And that's because those alignments are correct in there. And so now, leave that person out of it, go back to the health side and get those alignments in there. Now we're doing the health side of the art. We're doing that because we're moving correctly. And without that other person in there, it was really hard to see that because it's all these little small things. And this is true in all the moves or most of the moves that are going on in most kinds of applications. If it's any kind of a towards the grappling, throwing side of the equation. If you're striking, it's harder to tell, except if you're doing something like breaking boards or something, then you can tell, did it go through like butter, or was it ow and didn't break at all, or what's happening, right?
Done both.
And so you can tell like that. But I found on the grappling type ones, on the ones where like there's some where I have somebody grab the arm and literally you turn over into the wild horse and they can't hold on to you, and it either sends them to the floor or sends them off. Well, if that's done correctly, this is the right way to do it for health too. If it's like then okay, there's internal connections we've got to get correct in order for that to work like it's supposed to work. And it won't be healthy until that's right too.
And I think that's a tough connection sometimes for folks because they don't see martial arts necessarily as a health builder or improver or maintainer. And so trying to explain that balance of, what you're doing for the martial arts side here is actually accomplishing the same thing that you're looking over for the health side.
Yeah. Well, it's that in order to have internal alignments, like if it's external, we can eyeball it and go, okay, lower your elbow. Okay, sink your shoulder. But then there's how they're connecting inside their body. And that one, if you can see the energy, feel and or see the energy, you can make some of that correction, but it's really better for the person to do it themselves. And they're going to have to feel it in order to know. So you can even put them almost right for a minute. They're too tense with it. And amongst other things, and then it's still not really right, versus if it's, grab my arm again here, versus if it's that, and he was leaning in there with both arms like that, and it's just this way, and you go, okay, and if they do this and they can't, okay, adjust your posture, get everything right, think about doing your move. Now you come off like that. And when they go, okay, I'm not putting any effort into that. That's right. That's that way that you just move. That's how you're supposed to be moving with that.
Okay.
And now they have the feedback to know that it's right. The other way, they're not sitting on the couch. So they're not sitting on the couch. So there's some benefit, but it's no more benefit than walking until that internal part is really going on. And the only way you can check that internal part is with feedback. Without feedback, it's, at least in the beginning, it's really easy to have it not really be right, have it be wrong. And I don't I don't know of another better way for the person to really know that without actually testing it out somehow. And the same thing, the internal push hands lends itself, that we teach, that I teach, lends itself directly to testing a lot of different things so that you begin to feel those internal connections and you get better sung and you're not tensing places incorrectly. You're not if you're making the double weighted error, that comes through really quickly as well, that you can see, okay, that's not working because of this. This is what's correct. And then you start taking all of those principles and applying it in your solo form when you're doing it by yourself for just having the Tai Chi, both for internal principles and power and for health.
Okay. Okay. Now, it sounds like from your maybe with your classes, it sounds like it, while I know push hands is a big part of that in the application, it sounds like you do other stuff as well. You also offer, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, maybe a type of sparring in a sense as part of the
well, the fighting curriculum for Tai Chi is you start off with typically, because of the modern day thing and all that, everybody typically starts off with form, right? Wu Chi, posture, then form, whatever the form is. And so it's form and then standing Qigong in order to build and fortify all the stuff, right? And then the testing, ideally, especially on the martial side, you got to test those and make sure that the internal alignments are correct. All the internal alignments. Then the moving Qigong, keeping all of the internal alignments and connections. And then from there, stationary push hands, so that that's really testing them ongoing, and also learning how to feel, getting the tinging to me is one of the most important things, the ability, the highest level sensitivity you can get. Sensitivity is something I still work on a regular basis now, and I keep finding new stuff. 42 years in, I'm finding stuff that I have not felt before. New feel. The tinging, the listening, the feeling skill, it continues to build. I don't know where the end point is. And I've talked to other senior masters, and they're telling me the same thing.
Well, and I think that's key from what you talked about earlier. You talked about 6 months, 3 to 6 months, someone can get the self-defense moves down. Another year to 2 years, they can get the health benefits down. The bird's eye view, the overview high points. Now, and what I'm finding even still in my practice is that, each time I do it, there's something new here I didn't pick up before. Yeah. And you just keep going deeper and deeper into it. And I think that's probably the key for why the ongoing, don't just get the certificate or don't just get the belt.
Right.
Keep going.
Well, and there's actually a very large body of information there. And if they see the person just wants to go off and teach and not learn it, most of the masters are very happy to let somebody just go do that.
Yeah.
They don't want to go with somebody that doesn't really want to be there. My primary teacher there now, for the last 25 years almost, Uncle Bill, if he's working with somebody and he doesn't feel like they're extremely motivated and yes, I want to be here, he will be like, you know what, get out right there on the spot, leave. You don't even want to fool with you if you don't want to be there.
Actually, he's one of the polite ones then.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, the people that he's kicked out people that have been there for a long time, and they get pretty, and it's that he just feels they're not doing the work the way they need to be doing it, and they're not serious about furthering their education, and they've got a lot to learn. And he takes the attitude, he's 82, and he still is working on things where he's learning things all the time. Master Ma, I was told by Master Luji Fa, who had studied from Master Ma for 50 years, was still picking up new things at the end of his life. He died at like 95. So it's an ongoing process, and they don't want someone who is going to take somebody in and really, really take them to heart and train them up, who isn't going to look at it that way. They think you're going to go, yep, okay, I'm good, I don't want to learn anymore. They don't want to fool with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things I was going to throw out here, don't feel like you guys got to sit in silence. If there are questions you've got or things you want to throw in, certainly feel free to throw those in as well. We've got about 15 minutes left, so if you've got questions, feel free to throw those in.
So I was going to tell you on the fighting process there. So then the stationary push hands, then fixed step or some moving push hands, and then much more move, like very free. And this is all they're fixed types of push hands in order to learn how to be in specific positions and control certain positions and escape certain kinds of attacks and counter certain kinds of attacks and all of that. But then most of it is free if you're really learning it for fighting. Along with ideally picking that stuff up, most of it's freestyle. So even the stationary push hands ideally becomes freestyle. The fixed step, same thing. Then the moving step and really freestyle, where ideally you're staying in contact, but it's all over the place. Not uncontrolled or anything like that, but really with skills. And then it becomes dasho or like striking stuff, and then receiving that and returning back, and then builds its way into sansho, and where it's just free fighting and all of that. And so the fighting progression in Tai Chi, it follows that progression, and push hands is sort of like the intermediate step between form and application and all that to the sparring method. And then, yeah, for your question earlier, you spar with it, and you start off really soft and easy, and you're trying to learn how to not have to use power most of the time, but to make it that the person isn't able to really land on you. And then you build up so that ideally you get them really close in really bad positions where even a light tap is really going to do stuff to them. And then ideally it's internally connected. And then the high level after that for fighting with Tai Chi is learning how to touch somebody somewhere, aim inside of them, and being able to transmit force so that it doesn't, there's the level of blasting people off their feet, the hopping thing that you see everywhere. That is the skill of doing it to their bone structure that everybody kind of learns in order to make it safe. But the real use of that skill doesn't work like that. Instead, what it is that you aim inside at what you can feel, like their heart or their kidneys or other body parts, brain, spine, and you unleash to that, and they don't move from where they're at, or they don't move very much. But all the force that you saw somebody getting popped or thrown out with goes in to their body like that, and they fall where they're at, or they're doubled up if you're being kind about it, not really harming them. But that becomes after the other fighting part, and there aren't a ton of people running around with that kind of skill, but that skill absolutely is part of it, and is what Tai Chi is kind of famous for when you look at it from a historical standpoint, for really being a self-defense / fighting method.
Now, something, and definitely something like this coming from you would be great. This video is going to be watched by people who are new to Tai Chi, people who are just getting started in it. What are some of the characteristics you would recommend as far as looking for a teacher or looking for someone to begin learning that?
So the biggest one that we found overall is that because so many people, and they go through the set and they work on looking pretty with the set, and that kind of thing, that can't be the criteria, because ideally if they come in, they've got some kind of set going on. Now, if they don't have any, then you might be a little bit leery of that, or a lot. But most people have some kind of a Tai Chi set, so that can't be really the criteria. And whether it really looks super pretty to you or not can't be a criteria, especially as a beginner, because maybe it's pretty because they made it look pretty and there's no other benefit to it. Maybe it's pretty because it's just really nice like that. That's a harder thing for a beginner to gauge like that. So then the next thing would be, do they have anything for you to feel the energy? Now, there are people out there that really don't like that criteria or think that's kind of bogus. Well, you're feeling something, but what are you feeling, right? Well, my point being that if they can't discuss chi energy at all and no sensitivity to it at all, and that in my mind means they're not teaching that, so there's a good chance they don't know it. One of the other ones is anything they're talking about. If you're able to see stuff like that, can the students do it? Okay. Because if the students can't do it and only the teacher can, then even if they've got the skills, are they teaching the skills?
They can show it to you, but they're not going to tell you how to do it.
And so, yeah, and so that's part of it, is that can the students do it? Do they have a push hands method, and does it look like that's freestyle? Ideally, they might have some fixed as well, but freestyle. And does it look like real skill is being built and happening, not some kind of a free-for-all, shove you off the top of the hill? If it just looks like a thing like that, they may or may not have any skill with it. And even if they have some, as a beginner, just getting batted around is really probably not doing you a lot of favors, especially if you came in for help. But if you're seeing stuff that's like, okay, here's the posture, here's where the thing is, and push in, and then you're seeing some things going on there, and then can they do it faster, ideally, because they should be able to, and faster all the way up to ballistic, depending on who you as the student are, is going to depend on how much of that you're going to want to ask them, and also are they demonstrating that on someone else, and then if you're up for it, can you feel some? And if you're being there kind of like feeling, and are they willing to show it to you? One of the big fallacies or things out there that gets said a lot that aggravates me as a teacher is, oh, I can only do that on my students, because it would hurt you. And I do stuff to people who aren't my students all the time. One of the questions I guess I would say from a hands-on standpoint is, will they let you put hands on them? And can they do stuff with you to you that they're doing with the other students when you put hands on them? And that's with you not being cooperative, not being so uncooperative or difficult that it turns into, let's see who can knock each other's head in. I'm not suggesting anything like that. What I'm saying is, okay, they just took their student and with like their fingers, brought them in and sent them 5 feet that way. Can they do that to you? And if they can't, with you being a little bit like, I don't want to move over there, then maybe they can't do it. And if they can, then they've got something worth teaching you, at least, because they were able to move you like that. You weren't able to stop them. And so it's, will they put hands on and let you feel when you don't want to be cooperative? And there's a difference between not being cooperative and being belligerent and nasty. And so I'm saying not cooperative, not the other. In other words, can you feel it? And is it real? Is it really going on? And the idea that I can't do that to you, it will hurt you, is kind of ridiculous, because, like I said, I do it with people all the time, very regularly, in large groups, whoever comes out of the audience.
I think, again, it's that ability to control.
So I got a guy that was 500-pound moving monster, and I tried to put, internal power that would equate to 200 pounds of force on somebody. But even if I'm looking light with it, well, if they're a 500-pound monster, maybe it's not going to do anything to him. He'll know it's doing something compared to somebody who can't do that. But it might not have the same thing. So there can be a false equivalency. People go, well, this super athlete can punch their head in. And yeah, well, the guy's 80 years old. I'm talking about some of the masters where this has happened. He's 80-something years old. He's bringing the equivalent of 150 pounds of internal force to this, 250-pound steroid 25-year-old monster. We don't have a good equivalency here. Let's go get somebody that's also 25 years old and a master level of what they do, and that they've got all the best things going on that possibly could be going on. Because as we get older, and I'm talking about 70s and 80s and onwards and all that, internal power is still what's helping the teacher do the things they do, and it's still useful for them, and they can still use it for self-defense and all that. At the same time, that doesn't mean that somebody that's 250 pounds, muscled up, raging and ready to go isn't a problem. They're bringing a certain amount of energy and force and ability and speed and youth to the table, and if you have to account for all that and realize that if I measured it in force, I go, okay, externally they've got 100 units. Internally, maybe I've got 90 units. Well, 100 units still beats 90 units. But 90 units of internal force for a guy who's 82 ain't bad. Because let's see that external guy doing the external things he does at 82 years old. And what I've seen typically is that they're either not alive then, or they're not anywhere they're as bad or worse shape than anybody else you can think of. And so equivalency has to be taken into account. Anyways, the other part of that is, can they talk to you about other aspects of the Tai Chi? Can they talk about the alignments with some intelligence? Can they talk about breathing with some intelligence? Can they talk about energy moving through the body with some intelligence? Can they talk about the health part? Not, yeah, it's healthy for you, but talk about why and how and what it is that makes it work, and not hocus pocusy outer space stuff. I'm talking about just basic medicine things, basic medical knowledge things, basic alignment and skeletal things, basic breathing and respiratory things, basic circulatory system things. Can they talk about, so if you're grabbing them like this or that, the Tai Chi has nice responses like this, like that. And literally, if you start getting into the kinds of things I'm talking about, and it's being covered pretty thoroughly, they might not be a high-level teacher, but they ought to have some things to teach you if you're a beginner at Tai Chi. If they're going, well, you know, it's healthy for you, and how does that work, and where's your alignment at in that? And they're like, well, it's healthy for you. Probably not somebody that should really be teaching the art.
Well, that's some good. That's good. I definitely I get that occasion with emails. You know, I don't live in the area. What should I look for? You know, and those are some good points too to bring up to people to say, well, here's some things you really just kind of eyeball and see what's going on. And so,
well, and ask questions. Ask some very specific kinds of questions. Make sure you have some education about what song is. Person's never heard the term song before, probably need to walk. If you talk about Zhongding, which is central equilibrium, central alignment, and if they're not familiar with what that is by term, you probably need to walk. Peng Lu Jian, there are less people that know about that, but it's becoming more and more known. And so if you start talking about, okay, so where's your Peng? And you don't say the word expansive energy. And if they go, well, so what's Peng again? And if they're not able to give you something in a few words or some kind of a reasonable explanation, you know, and then you might have to educate yourself a little bit online or get some of the good books or materials. I've got a lot of free articles out there, both on our blog and in different YouTube posts where I'm talking about this stuff. And so you can go armed with enough terms, and then they might not know for some reason a particular term or whatever in Chinese. But if you're looking at it and you're going, okay, Peng, you know, expansive energy, and they're like, you know, or Song, you know, the kind of relaxation. Oh yeah, you relax. Okay, talk to me about that relaxation. You know, you relax. No, I don't know, and they don't either. So yeah, and so it really is. They ought to be able to have a paragraph or two or three really quick on relaxation and different aspects of relaxation and how that ties into the rest of the body and how to know if you're really doing it and what that really means, the relationship of the bones to the meat or the, you know, of your body. And this, but they ought to have some fairly intelligent, educated things to say. And if they don't, then they probably don't know.
Okay. And that's some good information to know once you're sharing with folks like that.
Can I jump in for a minute?
Yeah.
Hey, okay. Hi, Sifu.
Hey.
So one of the things in talking about what people should look for that are new to Tai Chi, your explanation, of course, is phenomenal. One of the things that I notice is people that are potentially coming to us as teachers purely from the health side. They're, especially if they're a little older, they're not going to be likely to say, hey, let me touch hands with you and can you move me across the room or whatever, because they're coming at it from health. But what I think anyone that's watching this that is new to Tai Chi, doesn't know a whole lot, maybe does want it more for the health side, is to understand that one of the most important things that they can do besides form is push hands and your internal push hands. It does not have to be, as so many think, that very explosive tournament style. And I can't tell you how many Tai Chi programs, as I think many of us know, that just don't touch push hands, let alone the real internal part of it. So I'm always quick to explain, especially even to like my senior citizen students on day one, why we're going to actually touch and the skills that you will get from that. Otherwise, you're most likely deluding yourself and thinking you have real skill just from doing choreography. And I think anyone that's new to Tai Chi or looking to do that should be made to understand that as soon as possible.
One of the things I'll do with students a lot of times when they come in and they're coming from that place too, like, and I've done that more since I broke my back, is I'll go put your hand in the middle of my back and I will move my spine basically like a snake, in every direction, sideways to side, in and out, up and down, both expanding the space in between and all that stuff. And I'll do it while the rest of my body isn't moving. Right, and I'll go, this is spinal health, which then will translate as a thing, along with many other things, but on its own, this will translate to other aspects of your health, that you have that kind of an ability inside your body. And that kind of a spinal health translates to other things. And
yeah, because it goes back to what you were saying earlier about, yeah, it is a martial art, but you've got to be able to get the stances correct, the movements correct, to be able to reap the health benefits as well.
Yes.
And so
and what I'm saying there's the idea to be able to move your spine like that, and especially to get your spine to open and close. And this is true with like all organs in the body. They kind of move and have this opening and closing action. And it's true with not just the organs, but most of the interactions between organs, like think digestive system here, and circulatory system here, and the movement inside. And so Tai Chi, really done properly in the internal side, helps those processes and makes them better and stronger and more. It increases the range and the depth and the amount and the strength of all those things. And so if somebody's doing that, that's all super health stuff. Can you use it in fighting? Yes. But also just in the slow form itself and really moving like that, it has really nice health stuff that's going to be useful to you long term. And so for the Tai Chi, it's both.
Definitely see that. Definitely. Well, I'm going to draw this to a close. I'm going to leave the room open so we can continue talking if you guys want to, or if you need to jet off. But I'm going to go ahead and end the recording. So for those of you who were watching the recording, thank you for your time. And you'll see a link below to go to Sifu Clear's website to enroll in classes, as well as opportunities to get in touch with him. So thank you for attending.
We are going to be doing in Boca Raton in the end of February, last February 27th, which is a Wednesday, 5 days. It's an internal push hands certification workshop. So if you're a Tai Chi teacher and you don't have a good internal push hands, it can be done with your older folks and the ones that are there for health, that does lend itself to martial if you want it to later in the training, but it's health oriented in the beginning. Go to my website at clearstaichi.com and go pull up the Boca Raton certification workshop. We do the test at the end, and you do have to stay for the test, or you can't take the test, in which case you can be certified. And we're training you in everything you need in that 5 days. It's 10 to 6 or 7, 10 to like each day with a break for lunch. And so that you can go back and actually teach that in your school and see the difference and the benefit that your students get from adding that. And I'm talking about just on the health side, even though there are martial things to it as well. But mostly when I'm doing this, I'm teaching the method. So although there's a little bit of martial, it's much, much more on the health and the internal power side of what we're working on there, with all the skill sets being put in place. So if you wanted it for martial, you could do that too. But we're not doing, it's not the shove you martial it's not that kind of thing.
Perfect. Now, like I said, you should see the link below in the description. You can actually get to his website, as well as all the other trainings that he's offering. It's quite a bit. If you haven't had a chance to look on his website, please definitely do so. There's a wealth of information on there. So thank you, and hope everyone has a great day.
Have a great day. Thank you.